the chat as well.
Great, awesome. So welcome everyone. Welcome to another meeting of the Green Reviews Working Group. This is a CNCF meeting, so we abide by the code of conduct, which can be summarized to everyone be excellent to each other. Today we have the meeting notes that Ross shared in the chat. First, we can do a round of intros for newcomers. I know, Nandish, I know we spoke on Slack, but I don't know if you attended the previous meeting. So.
Okay, I actually attended the meeting on Monday. That's a Green Charter meeting, but I'm getting to understand the team and as well as how I can start contributing. Basically, I'm a tester. Uh, that's what I did intro last time as well. So I'm trying to understand the project as well and the team as well.
Nice, welcome. And testing AI is very relevant to this working group, so we'll get to it. And you, Sebastian?
Yeah, so this is my first time here. So I've been working with Ross for the Grayson Fair Foundation hackathon a few weeks before, and so he talked to me about the Green Reviews group, which looked interesting. So looking to contribute also to this project.
Yes, Sebastian, yeah, it was great working with you on the Impact Framework plugin. I just post the issue for that, though we worked on it as well. We're kind of splitting our work up into different proposals, and I guess probably the third proposal around when we're doing measurements, then Impact Framework could be a tool for that. So yeah, I think there's plenty of scope here for contributions for new things that we're going to be working on.
Nice, awesome. And we have a couple of other attendees. Hi, Mitch, and hi, William. If anyone would like to introduce themselves, if they haven't joined a meeting before, they can do so.
I'm sorry for being late. I am looking to get more involved and I'm really honored to be here with you guys. I work at AWS and I'm really interested in helping move this project forward. This is my second meeting, just figuring out where things are and how I can get plugged in.
Welcome.
Yeah, hi. This is my first meeting, just checking it out. I work at Cloudera and curious to see what's going on in this space and perhaps joining. Thanks.
Nice. I'm sharing the meeting notes again. And actually, I can share my screen.
Yeah, I'm thinking maybe also should we do take a step back and do an overview of what we're working on in the project, because we've got quite a few to join us today.
Definitely, yeah. So here we are. Okay. If people would like to add their names here in the attendees list, that would be awesome. And yeah, let's do an overview of the project. We have some information here in the repository of the project. Can everyone still see my screen when I'm changing tabs? Yes.
Yes.
Right. Okay. The Green Reviews Working Group is a working group under the CNCF Environmental Sustainability Technical Advisory Group. And we started this project, the tag was created a couple of years ago. The working group was kickstarted in August of last year. And in this working group, it's the first long-term technical project of the environmental sustainability tag, where we want to create an architecture for measuring the carbon footprint of cloud-native software. And we're doing that using cloud-native tooling like Flux, Prometheus, Grafana, Kepler. Especially Kepler is kind of a new project. It's eBPF-based energy monitoring, and it's really a new. It allows public cloud users to measure their energy utilization, and based on that, it can be converted to carbon if you have the carbon intensity factor for the region in the cloud where the workload is running. So what we're trying to do with all of this is we're trying to run a automated benchmarking pipeline so that we measure the changes in sustainability related metrics per release for CNCF projects. So since in this case, we're using Falco, which is a security tool, but really the workload itself in theory can be anything. It can be any application running in the cloud. And we're volunteer run as a group. Things can be, change in pace, especially before KubeCon. We're going really fast to show some of our progress at the conference. And we have a blog post that we published right before KubeCon in March, which has a lot more information. I don't know, I can't find it readily right now, but I can share it.
I can find the link in
afterwards.
person, Nikki. Oh.
Okay, that would be great. Thank you. So that's the overview. We have our charter. We have the issue board, and currently we have a milestone. Like currently what we're working on is this. We want to add automation to this pipeline. So maybe Ross, would you like to kind of introduce the first part of the automation? Or let's pause for questions first. Are there any questions? Okay.
No.
Cool. Russ?
Okay. Yeah, sure. Yeah, I just posted the blog post, and then let's look at the proposals that we're working on. So yeah, this is the tracking issue with this 4 proposals that we're working on. The first one is the deploy step, and for that we've got a PR that we've got the open for the proposal, and the deploy step is about how we trigger the GitHub Action workflow, and then how we deploy the project, in this case Falco, in the workload. And then the second step from that following on will be the benchmarks that we'll run to add load to again to Falco in this case, so that we can measure it, and then we'll come on to the report stage where we calculate the SCI score and potentially other metrics. We're targeting SCI, which is the software carbon intensity, which is the Green Software Foundation metric that actually just got ISO certified, and that will give us the carbon intensity for a project that we can then compare between scores. We also plan to create other sustainability metrics, maybe more traditional SRE metrics as well, so teams can compare those with SCI. But so far, and then the final proposal is around benchmarking. We want to do a deeper investigation of benchmarking, because that's kind of a key part of the measurement process. So for the first proposal on the trigger and deploy step, what we want to do is we want to, whenever a new release for a project is created, we want to trigger our pipeline and calculate a score for that. And so GitHub has an Atom feed that we can subscribe to that will have the releases. There should be a link to that somewhere in the proposal. Yes, I think it's actually, actually in this step here, yes. So that Atom link is maintained by GitHub. So whenever a new release appears, we can detect that. And then what we want to do is I want to launch the project for that version, whatever the new release is. And then for the project, so we have Falco. The Falco team actually also have different drivers they want to detect this as well. So when we see a new release, we'll launch 3 instances of it. And we'll do that by calling the GitHub API. And there's an event called workflow dispatch that will start the workflow. So this is the trigger step. And then moving on past the trigger step is how we actually do the deploy. And we'll be using Flux for that. So currently we have Falco and the test workloads permanently deployed. So we'll need to do some kind of GitOps re-architecting so that we create the Flux resources in the action workflow. And then we can deploy the correct version of Falco in the correct configuration. So that's really the two kind of high-level parts for trigger and deploy. Does anyone have questions on that? I appreciate that was a bit of a deep dive. And this proposal, we've got open, so we're kind of looking for feedback on that. It's the first proposal we're doing through the proposal process. So also feedback on how we can iterate on the design process is also welcome. But hopefully it's getting to a state where we can merge it relatively soon, and then we can break this down into issues and start kind of how we distribute out the work.
Some of the ways to get involved are definitely, if you'd like to review the PR with the first proposal in the automation pipeline, that would really help. And hi, Sujata. And so yeah, reviews is definitely one way to contribute. If you're interested in picking up some of the more implementation type of work that will come after the proposal when we split this into issues, definitely, come back to the meetings or look at the channel, since we'll post them there. And we're also writing some proposals. If this is really interesting to you, and you'd like to contribute to the next proposals, the next part of the automation pipeline, you can also help there. Yeah, it really depends on what you find interesting, what your motivations are for this, for your contribution.
So,
Another
Nikki,
yes.
yeah. So yes, I am interested in contributing. So you said review and help in writing a proposal, and both of them I would be happy to find out more, and if possible, I would love to contribute that way. So let me know how to do that. What are the next steps?
Oh, amazing. The PR with the first proposal to review is here. I shared it in the chat. Any questions that you might have, anything that is unclear, please let us know, because a very big goal here is to create a reference architecture that people can reproduce. So definitely have a look.
Okay.
Also look at we do have quite a lot of issues open at the moment. It can be a little bit daunting, but maybe something will be really interesting to you. If you're more interested in the benchmark test and the data collection, or if you're more interested in, what do we mean by sustainability metrics? Like, how can we use traditional SRE metrics such as CPU utilization, and how does newer metrics like energy and carbon compare to traditional SRE metrics? That's another important area in what we're doing. So yeah, there's other things. We want a logo. There's other things as well that are like completely going in a different direction. We do need help with creating a logo, or the docs that we have, as well as
Okay, so logo for
yeah.
the group.
Yeah, for the Green Reviews Working Group.
Okay, and what kind of docs?
The docs are, we have the docs here, I believe. We are changing things because we were going to create a website, like a docs website, and then we decided actually we won't have a separate docs website, or docs will live under the sustainability tag website. Also important to note, this the sustainability tag website, and the docs are here.
Okay. Can you post the link also to the, okay, yeah, I see that.
We have more information about our infrastructure here.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, there's a lot of information to digest.
Yeah, no, it's okay.
Yes, I think we will need to create some new issues soon, probably around the docs changes, and also when we start breaking down the first proposal. Because I think also right now the issues we have labels on the issues. I think, for example, we don't have any good first issues right now, but I think we should have that pretty soon, and we can also post all those issues into the working group channel as well. So that'll be maybe clearer ways also in ways to dive in and help contributing.
I have a question. For this pipeline automation of the green review for Falco, so this is probably a really silly, obvious, maybe it's obvious, but the intention is Falco is the application that you want to be able to profile from a greenhouse gas point of view. And the idea is this just happens to be your application. So I'm repeating this for clarity, not to try and explain it to you. Just to understand, see if I understand this correctly. So the idea is that we create this pipeline that can be reproduced. You pick your application. This one's on Falco. And then for each release of Falco, whoever's releasing it can then see like, oh, things are getting better or worse from a greenhouse gas point of view. That's it, essentially. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Exactly. There's a couple of other directions we could go from there once we have the metrics per release. Some folks are interested in applying profiling tools to get, even further into the energy metrics at the function level, for example. Other folks would like to move into making the cluster more efficient to showcase those best practices and going that way. Other folks have raised maybe what are other ideas that we've had? Publishing the metrics in DevStats. I don't know if folks are familiar with it. It's a CNCF visualization, it's a dashboard where for each CNCF project, you can see some metrics on how it's doing. And so the idea was like, oh, what if we create a software carbon intensity score and then we publish it on DevStats per project so they all have scores. That was
Cool.
another idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, we have quite a bit of work to get through before we can expand that way.
And one more question on this. So for this particular effort, what infrastructure is actually going to run this? Is this like someone running on their desktop as kind, like a little local cluster, or is it something like how are you actually doing it?
We're using Donut Equinix infrastructure. So it's running on bare metal currently. It could be used like if people wanted to reproduce the benchmarking pipeline or
Yeah, the reproducibility of it would be, I'm kind of interested in.
so good question.
Yes, because we're running on bare metal. One of the benefits we get there is we can access the REPL measurements. An issue that we have in the cloud is often, REPL is blocked for security. But Kepler also runs in that model with kind of machine learning models where it figures that out as well. So actually running it in the cloud as well would also be interesting in terms of for comparison. But I think we kind of went with Equinix for two reasons, partly because we have credits through CNCF, but also because we can access the REPL measurements on the machines as well.
Yeah, I don't mean to comment negatively on your choices. Definitely, it'd be interesting to try it out and sort of get your hands on it. That's where I was starting with. And I am familiar with the REPL problem. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you tried Kepler before, or is that something you're interested in?
Familiar with it, haven't tried it. And I know they use eBPF, and I've looked at some of the details.
Yeah, so here we're trying to show like an example of how Kepler could be used as part of the development life cycle. Yeah, so that's the goal of this project, is to show one possible use case where developers could incorporate Kepler in, for example, a CI/CD pipeline when they're building their software, and like how to measure things per release. Another interesting thing is the green metrics tool. This is also very similar. It's a tool. We had the speaker come do a demo a couple months ago in the sustainability tag in the main meeting that we have. And we realized, yeah, because what this tool is doing is very, very similar to what we're building. Essentially, yeah, they're doing energy monitoring and benchmark tests and looking at a certain cadence, at this metrics at a certain cadence. We're doing a very similar thing, so it's nice to see an example of what it could look like. We're doing it in using cloud native software. That's the main difference. So our reference architecture is using cloud native tooling to do this. Another background information.
Yes, but just that it's a really nice tool because, for example, one of the things is they measure different phases of the installation. So they measure what happens during the install phase. They have like an idle phase as well. So it was it was a great presentation that Anna did, and it's definitely kind of an inspiration of what we're trying to build. But obviously, we have more of a cloud native focus because of working on the CNCF.
So do folks have kind of if folks who are interested have any questions, or if everyone has a entry point, there's like, yeah, check out the PR that's open for review, the backlog, the docs, familiarize with project, the blog post that we shared earlier. I think those are good entry points. And then when we break up the proposal into issues, then there will be things that people can pick up as well, like as a first issues.
So can you reshare the blogs that you shared earlier? Maybe I joined a little late. I don't see that link.
There's also the maintainer talk
Thank you.
that we did at KubeCon that has information.
Yes, there's also the tag post as well that has kind of a contribution to the tag as well, which there's kind of some overlap with what we're working on as well. So we can maybe post some more links in here for that.
Yep. So this talk from Antonio is one of the co-chairs, and Christina is a tag tech lead. There's more information there about the tag in general and also this working group.
Thank you. Yeah, and then we can ask questions on Slack, right? The Slack chat.
Yeah. Is anyone not on the Slack channel? Everyone is there? Okay, cool. Now I see Ross and Dipankar. Hi, Dipankar is on the call as well. For this pull request, what are the next steps? Is it mainly reviews that and feedback that you're looking for? Anything else that you would like to raise? Anything specifically?
From my side, yeah, it's mainly feedback we're looking for, including on the proposal itself, because this is the first time we're kind of doing the proposal process through the working group as well. And for example, the Atom feed seems to be the lightest touch way we can subscribe to releases. But if people have done that before and there's like a better way of doing it, then definitely suggestions on the technical side and are very useful as well. Yes, you just generally just general feedback, but especially if you've done similar things before, that's very welcome. Debank, is there anything you want to add from your side?
I was thinking about creating a diagram which will only focus on this pipeline part, and from the entire diagram which we had in the website. Yeah. So I will be doing that, and yeah, Ross and I will be like make it much more fine grained, like any changes we require or something, then we will do. And yeah, apart from that, it is almost done, I think.
Nice, yeah, diagrams are very, very good to have. And the more, the better. Awesome. And Flavia and I are going to work on the second proposal, which is so we have trigger and deploy, and then we have run. So as part of run, we want to write a proposal for how to, like, what happens after the GitHub action workflow is triggered. We'll have a way to fetch the benchmark tests. Currently, we have the benchmark test in Falco Securities in their repo. So Falco have this repo where initially we were using Flux with customization, with customize, where we were applying everything all the time. And that means we were applying all of Falco, like, and as all the daemon sets, all the benchmark tests, like, all the time. And now we want to improve on this, and that's why we're creating this automation so that we're only deploying Falco and running the tests when there's a new release, so that also our project is more sustainable. So essentially some of the tests are already there, and they're actually very, very simple. Like this is really what's running. This is the test. And we have a few different ones. Yeah, this is stress ng. Maybe some of you are familiar with it. So yeah, essentially what we want to do as part of the second proposal is to convert this into GitHub actions, like really small actions, like really modular small actions that we can just run one at a time, so that we're not running everything at it all the time. This is a deployment with a endless loop, which is not the best.
Is there a place where we're discussing which benchmarks to run? I feel like, the purpose of some of the benchmarks from Falco's perspective is to make sure that Falco doesn't break or malfunction under stress, but the purpose of our benchmarks is to see how things work normally.
This is a really good question. I think we were discussing this here, like create optimal synthetic workloads and also deciding how to do the benchmark test, I believe. This a lot of discussion. Yeah, here, for example, to take a step back, we wanted to find a way, like, as part of the software carbon intensity specification, we have to find the unit of work of the application. And for Falco, this is quite challenging. For a regular application, this would be, for example, the number of API calls, or the number of requests. With Falco, this is really, really hard because it's looking for events at the kernel level. So the unit of work for Falco is the event rate at the kernel level, and that's why we were using stressng to create a lot of events and then reach a target event rate, and then we're assuming Falco is performing at that unit of work. So that was the goal behind this. It doesn't help that it's very, very challenging.
I think that doing it as sort of a defining unit of work at a microscopic level misses the opportunity to optimize Falco architecturally. So for example, it could be that there's a different way Falco should be working. And the unit of work should be something like a theoretical simulated workload of a website or some kind of thing that you would typically add Falco to. I can open a new issue on this conversation and come up with some new questions that people can feedback on.
At the risk of maybe stating something that you've already discussed or found, just a quick Google search on Falco benchmarking shows that they have a performance testing tool, it looks like, that has an event generator. I'll post it here in the Zoom. It might be good to use their existing benchmarking tool to drive this portion of things.
I think that there is a more preliminary question as to what is a unit of work for the purpose of this framework.
Yeah, I took that to mean, well, my interpretation of that was use for the Falco team, whoever, I don't know who's, if anybody on this call is on the Falco team, have them define what that unit of work is since it's their application, because it'd be them probably doing the troubleshooting for that unit of work and trying to figure out the details within it to understand what's going on. That was where I was going with that.
I like that. I like that, but I feel like if we ask them a big question, then they'll give an answer that is the most straightforward answer from their perspective, but it may not be the right question. So I guess the question is, what is the question? And I can help broach that, I guess.
So +1 on having the CNCF project maintainers come up with the unit of work. I think that would definitely help long term so that it's not on us as much. And that's kind of how we went with this. The stressng, for example, that was a suggestion from the Falco maintainers to use that. But yeah, I agree with William, your point of maybe let's take a step back. Let's focus on a synthetic workload performing certain actions, and then how does Falco react to those actions without necessarily looking at the really microscopic level internals. Is that a correct interpretation of what you said, William?
I guess it's more fundamental, and I think it's not related necessarily to Falco either. It's more when we initiate a project like this, what do we mean when we say a unit of work? And is it something that the project should define, and is it related to what they already consider to be what they're benchmarking? Or is there is it even necessary to have an independent process to define a unit of work? The reason I'm bringing this up is because there will be many different ways that in which a piece of software is getting run. And when we do a green review, we're not necessarily reviewing sort of like how that software sees itself running in a GitHub action or in its like build and test process. We want to know how the world uses it and what the impact on the overall emissions of the software will be in the cloud or in people's server farms. So that is a very sort of like independent question that is probably never been asked before of the people who are running the repo. And there's not going to be an easy answer too. It's going to be a very big exercise that people will have to come up with lots of heuristics and ways of simplifying the question, but it's not going to be something that is, oh yeah, here's our unit of work. And it's definitely not going to be something that is at the level of a microscopic unit of work.
Yeah, you're making a really, really good point. The unit of work, because it is so subjective, and it can be interpreted in so many ways, is I think one of the most challenging parts, because Kepler, technically it's very challenging, but you deploy it, you run it. The unit of work is something we have to decide based on heuristics, and that's much more challenging in my mind. There is some guideline from the software carbon intensity specification on this, but it's still quite obscure. If you'd like to open an issue, I would say best thing to do is in this repo, the Falco security repo. That's the place where Falco maintainers prefer to keep the collaboration. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be the best.
Yes, I think that is one of the challenges with the SCI specification is that the function unit does differ there. And the guidance they have in the guide repo kind of helps, but it's still a challenging area. So I think sort of continuing this discussion on the Falco benchmarks is like it will be very beneficial. We also have the fourth proposal we want to kick off, which hasn't started yet, around benchmarking in general. And I think some of that as well is to see whether we can have a suite of general benchmarks that we could apply to multiple projects. But yeah, benchmarking is definitely an area that needs more attention. So that's great, William, if you can start the discussion there.
Another idea was for the run proposal, to have, like, we can create new modular little GitHub action benchmark tests and have a collection of them. And we can iterate and improve on them. What I mean by that is I think it was Leo, who's a TAG chair, his proposal was to have the same tests for every project. So every tool that we test undergoes the same benchmark tests. That's another approach, I guess.
When I hear that, I think about how, some tools are bit databases and some tools are something like Falco, which is it's like almost at the OS level.
Yeah, it doesn't work for all of them.
Also, the workloads associated will also come into play. That's what I feel.
What do you mean?
The workloads associated with the Falco tool, when there are kind of the application-based workloads, when they are performing, that might also impact on the carbon emissions.
The good thing with Falco is that we can get the metrics per pod. So we are able to isolate the Falco pod.
Yes, and for isolation, we have two nodes where the test nodes are running. So we deploy Falco to one node, and then we deploy all the benchmarking in another node to try and kind of isolate that. But yeah, there are some challenges around that for sure. I think potentially with I mean, there's definitely issues where Falco is going to behave differently to like a database server or a web server, but maybe over time, if we develop a suite of benchmarks, we could see which apply per project. Yeah, I see that fourth benchmarking proposal as maybe an investigation and to see what are possible solutions to this.
When you say fourth proposal, where are you looking?
So that's in the tracking issue that we have, where that has the proposals that we're like, yes, thanks for taking this issue. Yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
I think what I envisage will happen is we'll have a collection of different benchmark tests, and we can eventually discard some or say, oh, this actually is a good benchmark test that we can reuse for this project. Yeah, I think that's where we'll arrive.
Well, I don't want to get us too far off topic, so let's table this. I can put some ideas in writing, and then we can continue that in the open.
Nice. I realize also we have not been taking notes. Dipankar, networking is something we're missing currently. I think there's no standard for how to do that, how to measure the carbon footprint of networking at the moment, or at least with the cloud environment.
Yeah, I think that's something Green Software Foundation, for example, are investigating, but I think yeah, there's not really a lot of best practice around that yet.
Yeah, action item below where you're typing.
Perfect. Yep, I think it would be good to have some discussion with Falco around this to get their feedback. And when you have the issue, feel free to share it in the Slack channel as well. So we can.
I'm guessing there'll be GSF people who will also have opinions on this because they've probably thought about it a lot.
On the functional unit?
Yeah, on sort of what is a translatable concept of unit of work that makes this project useful across larger conversations.
Yep, that's a really good point. I wonder, Ross, I wonder if we could get Chris to join this conversation. Maybe, William,
Yes.
when you have this issue, we can tag a few people from the GSF. Yeah, sorry, Ross.
I was going to say, yeah, that's like Chris Adams from Greenway Foundation. Yeah, I think this could be something you could be interested in. I think it's also the standards working group within GSF, the ones kind of working on the SCR specification and on the guide, so it'd be good to get their input there. Yeah, I think once we've got the issue up, maybe we can ping some people there and get their feedback too.
We're almost at time. I think we can wrap up. Are there any questions? We can also talk more next week on Wednesday during the regular TAG meeting. So the next working group Green Reviews meeting will be in 2 weeks. It alternates with the main sustainability TAG meeting, which is the same time, but yeah, alternating weeks. So we can talk more there or in 2 weeks in the Green Reviews working group meeting.
And just noticing there's no action
In
item
Slack.
for what you mentioned earlier, that we're going to take the latest proposal and cut it up into issues. Is there any help needed for that, or is someone already undertaking that?
I think help there would be really, really great. So with proposal 1, review PR.
Yes, yeah, it'd be great to get some help with it because I think there's probably 3 or 4 kind of issues we can break out from that, but help with scoping those issues, would be great. And hopefully we can keep them quite small and quite granular so we can share the work out and share the work out across the working group.
Yeah, let's see who would like to review the PR. Definitely need to do that. Would anyone like to also take that on?
I can also review the PR.
Great, that's that. Thanks, Sebastian.
And then for splitting up the proposal PR into issues. And Ross and Dipankar, I will add you two anyway.
Yeah, definitely. We can to do that. We probably need that the reviews first. So once we're a bit further ahead with reviews, but yeah, I think both of us can do that. And if anyone else wants help with that as well, that'd be appreciated.
Sorry, what's that? What's the help needed here?
It's to break down the proposal into issues that can then be worked on.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I can have a look and see if I can help.
Great, thanks, Anne.
Sujata, would you like that I add you for the review or I guess splitting up into issues?
So add me to the review? Yeah, sure.
Perfect. And then we'll see once it's approved.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty new, so I'll see how much I can help, but yeah, I'll try my best.
Yeah, questions would definitely really help.
Yeah.
Mm,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Yes, yeah,
That
but
helps.
specialize it if there's things that are unclear.
Okay.
Perfect. Well, we're at time. Thank you all so much for joining today and sharing your feedback. And welcome again. And let's stay in touch in the next meetings and Slack and GitHub.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye. Thanks.
Everyone.